All right, hi everyone. Can you hear me all right? We've been getting a bit of feedback off one of these speakers. I'm just going to stand over here. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking about how we use R at work and when we do and don't use it. And my slides are quite light, so I'm mostly going to be speaking. But I'm going to give you a bit of background first. So Bain Company, it's a management consulting company. It's about 8,000 people globally. We are well known for a few things. So there's three big management consulting companies. We're one of them, and what we're well known for is doing private equity work. We're the leader in that. We're quite big fans of the NPS system, which is a way of measuring customer satisfaction. And we started bashing pie charts before it was cool. So we made a rule a while ago to get rid of pie charts and rather use Meko plots, which are a lot more interpretable. So that's one other thing that we're known for. Within Bain, I work in a division called the Advanced Analytics Group. We're about 100 people spread out all over the world. And we do a variety of different work, from data science to machine learning engineering, marketing science, qualitative research. So really like a broad range of work that we do. And so tooling is really important because we have a lot of different people from various backgrounds and doing a lot of different work. And so we have to think a lot about what's the best tool. A bit about myself quickly to give you some context. I studied actuarial science. I'm more interested in data science these days. I've spent the last few years doing a bit of a career change. Worked in telco, worked in tech, and now in consulting. So a bit of a backstory. My father was an artisan. He worked with his hands. He was a fitter and turner in the railways. And so he would always teach me how to build stuff when I was young. And one of the things he said to me that stuck with me was, if you're sweating, you're using the wrong tool. And it's really true. If you feel like you're struggling, you're probably using the wrong tool. And that's really like stuck with me in terms of the work I do. And you start to get that feeling when you realize, like, this shouldn't be this difficult. What am I doing wrong? And so I want to talk about how R has really been that tool for me that has really felt like I've had enough control, but not getting bogged down in the details. And it really is this feeling that you get, like you have a great cordless drill and you can like assemble 1,000 chairs in a day because this thing just works. And that's what R's like for me. So I'm going to talk about three cases where R really helped me to solve a problem uniquely. And afterwards I'm going to talk a little bit about where R fits into all the different tools that we use. So I was in London for my induction when I just started, and a client came in for a meeting and they said, we need you to analyze this data, but legally you can't take it off my laptop. My laptop's running Windows with terrible processor, 2 gigs of RAM, and the data is 10, 12, 15 gigs. So we need you to, and we've got a quick time constraint, the client needs to leave, so you've got to analyze this data quickly on a machine that's really not able to do that. And this is where it was this magic that quickly install R Studio, install Sparkly R, and you can, like with the syntax that you're used to, with the dplyr syntax, quickly get into that data, plot it, analyze it, get a decision out. And it's not your environment that you're used to. It's got none of your tools that you like. It's got none of your productivity hacks that you set up for yourself. You're just thrown in the deep end with no time, and R just comes through for you. And those are the sort of thoughtful things about how R and R Studio and the Tidyverse is designed that really come out in practice. Having now moved to consulting from an environment where I'd always work with internal data, my pipeline was always do everything in database, do all the heavy lifting in database, bring it out, and then do your modeling out. But now in consulting, you don't have that luxury. And so I've really grown to appreciate the help that especially Sparkly R gives in that area. Another great case where R has helped me a lot is that We do a lot of repetitive work, so we'll do an analysis on a survey that comes out quarterly, and we'll need to repeat that analysis every quarter for the ongoing future. And where R is amazing is that you can take massively complicated projects and package them up in a package that's easy to use with good documentation, and then hand it over to someone that's maybe not necessarily a data scientist or someone who's not quite as technical as yourself to run with that thing. And so in this case, it's NPS surveys for telcos, and we're doing topic modeling and sentiment analysis on the free text answers. And so it can be challenging. So especially sentiment analysis, one of the favorite responses in these surveys is, I have no problems. And now if you just look at a per word sentiment score, the word no and problem show a low sentiment. And so if you're just looking at single words, you get a very bad view of the sentiment. And so what we did is we built a sentiment model with Keras, with a one-dimensional convolutional neural net. And what we used as labels was the NPS score. So we used they first rated 0 to 10, how likely they are to recommend the product, and then they write a little bit of text why. So there you've got labeled data, and you can use that to train a sentiment model on that similar short form text, because people tend to write differently in text boxes than they write maybe in an email or versus social media. And so we can do ours just that nice balance of being able to do like a serious deep learning neural network and package that up so it's simple enough to hand over to someone who's non-technical. So really it was super helpful in that case. And then a lot of the work we do is market research. So private equity companies typically want to know very quickly, should we buy this company or not? And it's a lot of qualitative and market researchy things. And that space is really dominated by specific tools. So you'll have latent gold for doing clustering. You'll have Sawtooth for doing, Sawtooth does, thank you, yes. Sawtooth does conjoint analysis. You have guys, very specific tools around doing white space analysis. These are all very market research type things. And what happens with those projects is then you end up with a bit of this mess where it's like take this data out of SQL Server, then put it into R, then do this in SPSS, then do this in latent gold, and it really becomes a mess. And it's very hard to hand over a project like that. So I got handed over a project like that. And what was just amazing was that I found that all the tools that we were using there were libraries that were as good in R. And I could rewrite an entire project using 5 different tools down into one tool with a very easy flow. And that's very easy to hand over and to reproduce and to document well. And so really these are like 3 good examples of where R's just taken something that would be very difficult otherwise, surely possible with other tools, but just made it so much easier. So speaking about tools now, I would love to just use R, and if it was up to me, that's what it would be. But the reality is that not everyone likes to code. A lot of people are scared of code. A lot of things that we build need to go into production, and while it's possible that you can put R into production, it's a hard sell with the client. And so we really need to think clearly about where we deploy which tools. And so now, with Excel, you've got this huge risk of spreadsheet error, and there have been many famous spreadsheet errors. But I maintain that it is possible to use Excel responsibly. Part of our actuarial training is this really dinky course that everyone hates, where it's called modeling, and you build these really dumb spreadsheets, and you really make it foolproof. You put like a big arrow. This is where you go next, and if you drag formulas, you color them all the same color, and it feels stupid because you're like really making this thing like over the top careful. But after doing that course, you realize that actually there's a lot of good stuff in there, that there are a lot of mistakes you can make, especially on the flow of a spreadsheet. Where does it start? Where does it end? But you really can put things in place to do Excel a bit safer. And so we do still hand over some work to clients in Excel if they prefer. but we try to do it responsibly. Alteryx and Tableau are great. Unfortunately, they are proprietary, but they get around the most common problem that those solve for us is the row limits on Excel. So we tend to have clients running into very large spreadsheets hitting row limits. I'm not sure what Excel's latest one is. It's 1 point something million. And they hit that pretty quickly. And Alteryx and Tableau is a really nice tool for us to give clients to use if they're not into code, if they want a user interface. And it sort of solves that flow problem a little bit in the sense that it's got nodes and you can see where the data is going. They can still get pretty hairy, the layouts, but it's better than Excel, I find. So then you come to the R versus Python debate, and really, I think they're both great. What it's come down to us, what we found in practice works for us, is that if it's going to go into production, we do it in Python. If it's anything else, I like to use R. The reason for this is that getting stuff into production at a client is difficult, and it's got a lot of unforeseen problems. And so what you might say, oh, well, let's just prototype it in R and then build the final product in Python. But what we find is that a much better flow when you're at the client is to put a dumb model into production immediately and figure out all the kinks and getting into the final product and then improve your model. So there isn't really space in that workflow where you want to get integrated into their system immediately and then improve your model. So there isn't really space for prototyping in another language there. And so that's why for stuff that's going to go into the client system, we tend to use Python. But wherever else, I like to use R. And then the bespoke tools for market research, there's still some value. The packages in R and Python don't completely cover all the needs there, and there's a lot of people that still really enjoy those tools because they're used to them, they like the interfaces from it. We're trying to phase those out, and hopefully they will be phased out in a few years, but for the meanwhile, they're still around. So I would welcome any questions or comments that you guys have with your experience at work, what tools you find have worked well, where you find R hasn't worked well. Yeah.
What have you found to be the adoption of non-technical people to be comfortable with using R in the corporate space? So I've had my journeys in academia, but I'm just quite curious kind of what the adoption...
Yeah, it really depends on the background. So what we find is that what's been really impressed me more about R, I've been using R for a while, so I take things for granted, but I've seen people with technical backgrounds like engineers and that have never used R, picking up R in a week and finishing a project in R in 1 week. And that's really impressive. Like, I don't know if that's likely in any other language that you would see someone go from never used a language before to putting out a product in a week. Really depending on the background, I've seen it get massive uptake very quickly, but there's always that sort of resistance to code, which is something that we work on.
So I'm just curious as to, so you mentioned that you prefer Python for production. Yeah. Is that normally, would you just first, obviously you'd first consider the client's sort of their data environment.
Yeah.
Do you work with clients who integrate other sort of languages or other environments or tools? Why specifically Python? Production.
Sure. So I think
elaborated on that.
Yeah. So a lot of our clients typically are large corporates, and so if it was like websites or tech companies, it might be different. But really, Python seems to fit fairly well in. It's It's usually not going into production on a web server or something. It's usually something that's going into production on like insurance companies, input management system or something. And so we find our Python works quite well there. I've heard arguments lately that data science is going to move to JavaScript just because it's such a popular language and people build libraries for it. There's a lot of argument to be had there, but we've really just found that using Python in production really is just primarily a function of keeping our customers happy. There's one up there.
Why do you use Tableau and the other one when you could also use Power BI, which is interactive and it's free,
Sure.
unless you're sharing it with other employees and then you pay a license fee?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I haven't worked with Power BI myself. I haven't worked at a company that uses that whole suite in actually ever. So that's a very good question. I imagine, and I don't have all the answers, but I imagine that Tableau is easier to use. But I'm sure lots of people would disagree.
The nice thing with Power BI is that you can build a data set for your clients, give them a blank Power BI thing, and they can go and put it in their own graphs and charts and all of that. And it's also like click view, so if you click on one thing, then it will spread just for that item.
Yeah, look, I don't fully understand. I haven't worked with it, so I don't know. Does Power BI work on top of, is it not hardware dependent? Will it work if they don't use Microsoft in general at the company?
Yeah, it will still work, but it is a Microsoft product.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks.
Any other questions? Wrong route.
Just a quick question about you moving away from sawtooth. Did you remain with using hierarchical Bayes estimation, or did you move to maximum likelihood?
I mentioned sawtooth as an example. I haven't implemented that sort of work in R. I've more did the market research project I was on that I moved across to R was all clustering and segmentation. So I haven't found a R alternative to sawtooth.
Yeah, thanks. You mentioned ConvNets. What's the neural network support in R? Most of the stuff I see is Keras and PyTorch. So I'm just curious. I'm not so familiar with that in the R space.
Yeah, so look, I just used Keras. I find that it meets, if you really want to go deeper, you should sort of think about using Python. But Keras really covers, I find, 99% of the use cases. If you're really needing to go down into the detail, you should maybe think twice about whether you want to do that in R, because there's just a lot more support in Python for that sort of thing.
But so does Keras have an API in R?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I have one question. Just in the consulting world, do you guys use Shiny at all?
Yes.
Any application for that?
Yeah, we do use Shiny. We find that that's great for. So the second point I spoke to, we taking something a bit complicated and packaging it up. If it's got a short enough runtime, then we like to put it into a Shiny dashboard. The text analytics case there just had a couple hours runtime, so it doesn't really make sense to put it into a dashboard. But Shiny works really well for, if you take a clustering and you really want to make it easy for the user, you give them a few options. You say, rather than, the myriad options you have when doing a clustering, you say, okay, choose from these 3 distance functions, choose from, these 4 options, and you really try to give the user maybe 10 or 15 permutations of options, just so they've got enough handle to tweak the analysis to get good results, but not so many options that they get overwhelmed. And Shiny is really great for that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.